Imagine London in the winter of 1952. The city is a sprawling giant. Its heart warmed by millions of coal fires. Every home, every factory belches smoke into the sky, a daily ritual that has powered the industrial might of Britain for generations. This year, however, something is different. The air feels heavy, the sky a perpetual grey. December is just beginning, but a sense of unease is already settling over the city like a damp, cold blanket. On the morning of Friday, December 5th, Londoners woke up to a strange sight. A thick, yellow-brown fog had descended upon the city. This wasn't the usual romantic mist of a London morning. This was something else. It was dense, acrid, and it tasted of sulfur. The air was so thick you could barely see your own hand in front of your face. It was what they called a pea souper, but this one felt malicious. The cause was a perfect storm of meteorology and human activity. A high-pressure weather system, known as an anticyclone, had settled over the region. This created a temperature inversion, where a layer of warm air traps a layer of colder, denser air near the ground. Normally, smoke and pollutants from the city's chimneys would rise and disperse. But now, trapped by this atmospheric lid, they had nowhere to go. London was stewing in its own fumes. The smoke from millions of domestic fires, burning cheap, low-grade coal, mixed with pollutants from factories and power stations, creating a toxic cocktail of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and soot. By midday, the city was grinding to a halt. Visibility dropped to mere feet. Buses crept along the curbs, their conductors walking ahead with flares to guide them. Cars were abandoned where they stood. The famous red double-deckers were useless, their drivers unable to see the road. Even the River Thames was closed to shipping. The city's transport network was completely paralyzed. But the real crisis was happening inside. The smog wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a killer. It seeped through every crack, under every door, into homes, hospitals, and theaters. People started coughing, their chests tightening. The elderly, the very young, and those with respiratory conditions were the first to suffer. The smog acted like a chemical irritant, inflaming lung tissue and making it impossible to breathe. It was like drowning on dry land. Inside the hospitals, doctors and nurses were overwhelmed. Ambulance services couldn't operate in the zero visibility, so people had to make their own way to get help, stumbling blindly through the toxic air. Many never made it. Undertakers ran out of coffins, and florists ran out of flowers as the death toll began its silent, terrifying climb. Now, imagine this scene of chaos and add another layer of disaster. Darkness. The city's power was supplied by several coal-fired power stations, including the iconic Battersea Power Station. These stations were working overtime to meet the city's energy demands, which were higher than ever as people stayed indoors with the lights and heaters on. But there was a critical problem. The power stations, just like everything else in London, relied on coal, and the coal had to be transported to them. The ships carrying coal up the Thames were stranded. The trains trying to bring it in by rail were stuck. The trucks couldn't navigate the smog-choked streets. The city's lifelines were severed. The power stations were running on their reserve stockpiles, but with each passing hour, those reserves dwindled. The very engines that were contributing to the smog were now in danger of shutting down, starved of the fuel they needed to run. This is where our story takes a turn from a natural disaster to a man-made crisis spiraling out of control. The managers at Battersea Power Station faced an impossible choice. They watched their coal heaps shrink, knowing that if they ran out, the lights would go out across vast swathes of London. A blackout on top of the smog would be catastrophic. It would plunge the city into absolute darkness, making rescue efforts impossible and increasing the panic and chaos tenfold. In a desperate attempt to conserve their remaining fuel and keep the grid from collapsing, they had to make a difficult decision. They began implementing rolling blackouts. Power was cut to different areas for periods of time to ration the electricity. So now, Londoners were not only trapped in a poisonous fog, but they were also periodically plunged into a terrifying pitch-black darkness. Imagine being in your home, the windows showing nothing but a solid wall of yellow-black smog, and then suddenly the lights go out. The only sound is the muffled chaos from outside and your own ragged breathing. The psychological impact was immense. The blackout intensified the feeling of being trapped and helpless. People couldn't even see the faces of their own family members in the same room. Without electricity, electric heaters failed, leaving many to shiver in the cold, their only source of warmth being the very coal fires that were causing the smog in the first place. It was a vicious, deadly cycle. The blackout also crippled the city's infrastructure in other ways. Communication lines were affected. Without power, people couldn't listen to the radio for updates. Even something as simple as making a phone call became a challenge. The city was not just blind, it was deaf and dumb. For 5 long days, London was held hostage. The Great Smog of 1952, as it came to be known, was a nightmare made real. The city was a ghost town, its streets empty except for the brave few who had to venture out. There are stories of people getting lost just a few feet from their own front door, of cattle in the Smithfield market being asphyxiated where they stood. One performance of the opera La Traviata had to be abandoned because the audience couldn't see the stage from their seats. The smog had seeped inside the theatre itself. Then, on Tuesday, December 9th, a change came. A westerly wind finally picked up, blowing across the city. It acted like a giant broom, sweeping the toxic cloud out over the North Sea. The smog began to lift, slowly at first, and then more quickly. Londoners looked up and, for the first time in 5 days, they could see the sky. They could breathe again. The city slowly came back to life. The buses started running. The power was restored, and a semblance of normality returned. But the city was forever changed. When the final toll was counted, the numbers were staggering. Initially, it was estimated that 4,000 people had died as a direct result of the smog. But modern research suggests the true number was much higher, closer to 12,000 deaths, with over 100,000 more made seriously ill. It was the worst air pollution event in the history of the United Kingdom, a public health catastrophe on an unimaginable scale. The Great Smog and the blackouts that accompanied it were a brutal wake-up call. It was a stark, undeniable demonstration of the deadly consequences of unchecked pollution. The government, which had initially been slow to react, could no longer ignore the problem. The public outcry was immense. The disaster spurred a wave of environmental activism and led to a complete rethinking of public health and pollution control. In the years that followed, landmark legislation was passed, most notably the Clean Air Act of 1956. This act introduced measures to control air pollution, creating smoke control areas in towns and cities where only smokeless fuels could be burned. It shifted homes away from burning dirty coal for heat and pushed industries to use cleaner technologies. Battersea Power Station itself was eventually fitted with gas washing plants to reduce its sulfur emissions, a direct response to its role in the smog. The London smog blackout of 1952 is a dark chapter in the city's history, but it's also a powerful story of consequence and change. It's a reminder that the systems we rely on, like our power grid and our environment, are intricately linked and incredibly fragile. The sight of a city brought to its knees, blinded by smog, and plunged into darkness, forced a nation to confront the true cost of progress and paved the way for the modern environmental movement. It's a lesson written in smoke and darkness, one that we should never forget. Thanks for watching. If you found this story interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most impactful events. See you in the next one.